Battery storage, the topic of the day. Boy, has this been a topic that's had a ton of buzz around it for over a decade. Depending on the source, battery storage is either the holy grail that will unlock a fully sustainable energy mix that all of us should be purchasing for our homes or businesses, or it's a solution that only makes sense in very particular situations if a payback is required. Promises that I've heard about over the years include capturing my own solar to use at night and reducing how much I use from the utility, and also reducing my own carbon footprint, fully backing up my home so that I never feel an outage, saving money by charging and discharging at optimal rates. Battery storage could help avoid a costly upgrade to a home's electrical panel. And I've also heard that helping the utility out when there's not enough power for everyone on extremely hot days is a benefit of batteries. We're here today to shed some light on the realities of battery storage technology and to share with you how SMUD's programs are empowering our customers to adopt this technology when you feel it's right for you. Thanks for joining. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenters. Joining us from the SMUD team are Gabe Leggett and Jennifer Starr. Gabe is a principal engineer and research and design focusing on energy storage. Gabe is a Sac State graduate and has worked at San Diego Gas and Electric, PG&E, and SMUD designing, procuring, installing, and commissioning battery energy storage systems. Jen is a supervisor over SMUD's portfolio of demand response and load flexibility programs where many of our customer interactions with batteries lie. Thank you both for joining us. And with that, I'll hand it over to Gabe to take it away. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Joey. All right, so we'll just dive right in. As mentioned before, feel free to drop some questions in the chat, and we'll take some breaks to answer those along the way. Definitely like this presentation to be a little more interactive, so it's not just me talking for 20 or 30 minutes. We'll go over the technology overview for about 20 minutes, and then I'll hand it over to Jen, who will talk about our incentives and programs that we have, and then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end to answer some additional questions. So let's go ahead and jump into battery energy storage systems, or BESS. It's really just a way of storing electrical energy in a chemical manner. So the prevailing technology that you'll see for your residential systems is lithium ion. But there's other batteries out there. People have built systems that are completely lead acid. There's a newer technology, sodium ion, that is supposed to potentially be a little bit cheaper and also won't have to use rare earth metals such as lithium ion systems. But if you're going to buy a residential energy storage system, it's primarily going to be lithium ion due to its energy density, which means it can store a lot more energy for its footprint. That's another reason why lithium ion is the technology and chemistry for EVs. You want something that's very small and can store a lot of energy. It'd be difficult to build an EV that was powered 100% by lead acid battery, for example. So I'm going to go over some battery terminology. Just this is for you if you do decide to purchase a battery energy storage system. First of all, it's just a state of charge. So here, SOC, that's ranging from 0% to 100%, and that just lets you know how much energy is being stored in your battery, how much longer it has to charge or discharge. So very similar to your cell phone. If you have 50% battery, you're at half capacity. Now, the battery system will produce direct current, so referred to as DC, and your home uses AC, so alternating current. So you need a piece of equipment known as an inverter, which is built into the battery energy storage system. That'll convert the DC to AC, and then for charging, it'll convert AC to DC. This is another thing that will experience some transition losses, so it'll affect your round trip efficiency, which I'll get into next. So let's jump into cycles. So a cycle is a full charge and a full discharge. You'll see this on your data sheet or your warranty when you buy your battery energy storage system. It'll say we guarantee 3,000 cycles or 5,000 cycles. So that'll be like, hey, I can do 5,000 full charges and full discharges. And they'll guarantee it generally for about 10 years for those 3,000 or 5,000 cycles before the battery degrades to roughly about 70%. So you do lose capacity roughly about 3% per year. So if your battery can store 10 kilowatt hours, which is a unit of energy, in about 10 years, it's only going to be able to store about 7 kilowatt hours. And that's just based on how you use the battery, how it's stored, and how many cycles you do per day. So once again, very similar to the lithium ion battery that's in your cell phone. If you've bought a cell phone, it has a lot of capacity the first year, and then by year 3 or year 4, you find that you're running to go get your charge cable because you're just running out of power really quickly. So there is degradation that occurs. So round trip efficiency is going to be another data point you want to see for your battery system. And this will affect your economic calculation of whether a battery energy storage system is right for you. So there are losses in the system. So you don't get back all the energy that you stored. So if you store 10 units of energy, you're only going to get back about 8.5 or maybe 9 units of energy. So we see round trip efficiencies roughly about 85%. Some of the newer systems say they can get 89 or 90% round trip efficiency, but just know you are going to experience some losses and you're not going to get all the energy back that you store during the day. So let's go into some terminology. And this is also going to be important for your data sheet. So it's going to be a kilowatt, which is a unit of power. That'll be how much your inverter is able to produce. And then a kilowatt hour, which is a unit of energy. And that's just how much energy you can store in your battery. And an example would be a normal residential home requires about 5 kilowatts. During its peak, it could be as high as 10 kilowatts. And that'd be, your HVAC, your refrigerators, your computers, all the lighting requires this unit of power. And then how long do you want to be able to run that piece of equipment? So if you had a 5 kilowatt power demand and you have a 10 kilowatt hour battery system, you'd be able to supply those 5 kilowatts for 2 hours. So basically just take your kilowatt hours, divide it by your kilowatt, and that'll tell you how long you're able to provide power to those pieces of equipment. So how you're billed from your SMUD bill as a residential customer is you're billed based on your kilowatt hours, so the amount of energy you use. So we're not generally concerned with your kilowatt, which is your unit of power, because that fluctuates throughout the day as you turn on appliances, turn off appliances. It's really just the amount of energy we sell to you. So let's look at an example based on the 2025 residential rates. So if you're requiring 2 kilowatts of power, and you're going to do that for a full day, so 2 kilowatts times 24 hours, means you will have used 48 kilowatt hours. You can go ahead and look at our rate and see that, for example, that energy would cost 13 cents per kilowatt hour. So we take the 48 kilowatt hours, multiply by 13 cents per kilowatt hour, and you see that it costs about $6 to power your residence for that day. Now, we'll go into our time of use rate, which means the prices fluctuate, whether it's a peak, semi-peak, or off-peak hours. But this would be an example if we had a flat rate. So let's talk about the residential applications that Joey kind of talked about. And the big one usually is bill savings and environmental impact. And we see a lot of battery systems are coupled with solar. So your solar system overproduces during the day. You store that energy, and then you use that energy that's now in your battery in the evening when prices are high or in the late peak. Also, this is primarily big in California, is to use your battery system for backup power. So in case there's an outage that occurs, can you power your home using your battery? And the answer is yes. What you'll find, though, is that a single battery system probably isn't going to be able to give you full home backup. You may end up having to buy 2 or 3 batteries, which, if I'm just using a rough number, about $10,000 per battery, you may end up spending $30,000 to be able to back up your house completely. So if you're doing a single battery system, generally you'll install a critical loads panel, which will allow you during an outage to switch over and only power your critical loads or your essential loads, rather than powering your entire house, which a single battery probably is not going to be able to do. So I'm an engineer, so I like graphs. So please bear with me. So this one is, your solar output versus your house load. So the orange line is showing kind of what your standard residential load profile would look like, where you have a small peak in the morning. Everyone's getting ready for work, got to get out to go to school, and then it tapers off in the late afternoon and early afternoon. And then everyone gets home from work, and then all of a sudden you have this evening peak, and this is usually when energy is the most expensive. And then once everyone goes to bed, that tapers off and kind of levels out. Well, if you look at your solar production obviously is not there in the middle of the night, but it starts to ramp up during midday. So you'll um, require energy from SMUD, energy from the grid, during the night and then that early morning. Then you'll have, due to the mismatch of energy being produced compared to energy being consumed in your house, you're going to give energy back to SMUD. So you're going to send energy back to the grid during that late morning and afternoon time. And then it switches again in the evening. You now require energy back from SMUD. So your obviously, as I pointed out, your house load peaks in the evening between 5 and 8 p.m. And that's going to be the biggest demand, and that's usually where your electric bill is going to have the biggest impact when you're using energy between 5 and 8. So let's look at it as I kind of go through here. 1 second. So let's look at how we would use this if you have solar plus battery. So rather than sending that energy back to the grid during that late morning and early afternoon, you can take that energy, that excess energy, kind of in that red area, and store that in your battery system. Now that energy is ready to go between that 5 and 8 p.m. when you're at your peak hours to discharge your battery and consume energy in your battery rather than consuming energy from the grid. And this is really how you're going to get that savings. This is referred to as energy arbitrage, where you're storing cheap energy during the day and using it to offset expensive energy in the evening. Going through. Okay, so let's go through an example, and this would just be battery only. We'll do another example after this where we have battery plus solar. But let's show how you can do a quick calculation to see how much you're going to save using a battery system. So, and we'll use our example of a 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt hour battery system. So if you were to charge your battery during the off-peak time, and this is based on the 2025 residential time of day rate, it's going to be about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's going to cost $1.50 to charge your battery up during the day. And then when you discharge it, you're offsetting $3.66 of energy that you would have had bought from SMUD. So if we subtract the two, you can see by doing this charge when it's cheap and discharge when it's expensive, you save about $2 per day. And this is based on the summer rate. Wintertime, it's about 50 cents. So you can kind of really see how much, if it's $2 per day over the summer, about 50 cents over the winter, how much you're actually going to save using your battery throughout the year. Now let's look at an example if you have a battery system plus solar. So based on the rates of your net energy metering, or how much SMUD is willing to pay for energy being received by your solar system, the number currently right now is 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour. So if you were to sell 10 kilowatt hours of energy to SMUD during the day with that excess energy, you're only going to recoup about 74 cents. Now, a better way to do it would be to take, instead of selling that energy for 74 cents, is to store that energy in your battery system, that 10 kilowatt hours, and then go ahead and use it during that 5 and 8 p.m. time, where energy is close to about 37 cents per kilowatt hour. So you're going to store that energy, use it to offset $3.66 of energy that you would have bought from SMUD, meaning that your overall savings is close to $3 that day. So when you have a battery system plus solar, it's far better to store that energy, use it during peak times, rather than just selling it back to SMUD at a rate of 7 cents, 7.4 cents per kilowatt. So we can see that you're saving close to $3 a day, and then during the winter time, it's almost close to $1. So that's how you're going to get the most value out of using both your systems. So just general numbers, if you have a single battery system, you can look to save between $450 to $550 annually, just by doing this energy arbitrage, by storing energy when energy is cheap or storing energy from your solar system, and then using it in the evening time to offset that high energy cost for the peak points of between 5 and 8 p.m. Now, typically a residential battery, and you can usually Tesla is pretty good at showing what the cost would be for your battery system if you just go to their website and say, I want a single battery. This is the equipment I want to keep backed up. Whether you have solar or not, but roughly it's about $10,000 to buy a battery system, and this is without install. So I've seen numbers between about 11,000 to 13,000 to get that battery system installed and operational in your facility or at your residence. So you can see with the savings, the bill savings compared to the cost, you're really over about a 10-year period only going to recoup about 50% of your battery cost. So if it's really for an economic benefit, without using incentives, which Jen's going to go over pretty soon, it really doesn't pencil out to recoup your cost for investing in this battery system. And a lot of that is based off of just SMUD rates. Luckily, SMUD rates are pretty low, and we don't have a big delta between our off-peak and peak times. But if you're in areas like PG&E service territory or San Diego Gas and Electric service territories where I've worked in the past, the delta between their peak and their off-peak times is much greater, plus electricity is much more expensive. In those areas, a battery system by itself, even without incentives, starts to pencil out and make sense. So let's cover the backup power, or if you want to do full home or critical load backup using a battery system. And here's a quick example. So let's use that 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt hour battery system. If you want to be able to back up all your appliances, so your water heater, your AC unit, your cell phones, TVs, basically all your lighting, you can see that your home might peak at about 12 kilowatts. So that single battery is not going to be able to provide full home backup. You would have to buy 3 batteries to be able to back up your entire house for a few hours. So if you're wanting to save money but still provide backup power, it's far better to do a critical loads panel. And this is just a panel that's installed next to your main electrical panel that'll switch over and it'll just provide your critical loads. So like maybe your refrigerator, some lighting, and maybe just your router and internet. That'd be important for me. And then you're still able to ride through this outage, but you don't need to buy 2 or 3 batteries. You're able to just back up your essential loads. So a couple more factors to take into consideration when you're buying a battery system. As I'd mentioned before, there is battery degradation, very similar to what happens to your cell phone, although the batteries that you're going to install at your house, the stationary storage, is going to last much longer, 10 to 15 years. But it does experience about a 2 to 3% loss in energy or a loss in capacity. So when it originally could store 10 kilowatt hours, by year 10, it now can only store 7 kilowatt hours. We had mentioned turnaround efficiency, so you don't get back all the energy that you stored. And the other one that you have to take into consideration is ambient temperature. So battery systems, lithium ion primarily, likes to be between 50 degrees Fahrenheit and 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where it's the most comfortable and you don't have an increase of self-discharge or any kind of increase in degradation. But if you're above 86 degrees or below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the degradation per year goes up. So we see some people put their battery systems in their garage, and then during the summer, you're basically kind of cooking your battery. So your capacity loss or degradation is going to be closer to that 3%. If you're able to keep it between 50 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit, you can lower that closer to 1.5 or 2% degradation. So there is recommendations of keeping the battery system in an AC cooled environment, so in your home, or if you are going to put it in your garage, just make sure that it's not going to hit those high temperatures. Okay, and Joey, I can pause here before I hand over to Jen to answer any technical questions before we go over and talk about our incentives and the programs that SMUD has to make buying a battery system more of an economic benefit.
Awesome. Thanks, Gabe. Great overview. There was one question in the chat that I took a crack at answering,
Okay.
which is how is rooftop solar integrated into a battery system? I had, given that we're currently leaning on Tesla Powerwalls for the battery storage program, I did find a diagram on their website that can
Okay.
answer that to some extent. But I think what's missing in their diagram, if you were to go with any other battery that doesn't have an inverter built into it, is the fact that you do have that inverter somewhere in your design. I think there's some other technology to be able to modulate the controls coming, the energy coming from the solar and pumping it either into the house or the battery. Maybe you can talk to that a little bit more, and if our guest has any follow-ups, he can ask those in the chat.
Yeah, sure. So if you are looking to buy a solar and battery system at the same time, usually it's very easy to be compatible. So you don't necessarily have to worry about that. Generally, what we see is somebody has solar in the past, and then they want to go ahead and install a battery afterwards. Now, modern systems do have a multi-port inverter. So that inverter will be able to accept your solar connection as well as your battery connection, and then has built-in intelligence to know how to route power basically to your battery system instead of setting it out to the grid. So there is going to be a discussion that you need between your battery manufacturer or your installer with your pre-existing system and to see if they're compatible. There can be a point where you essentially now have two inverters, a solar inverter and a battery inverter, and that may need to install additional equipment to be able to use both systems properly. But usually, if you're just buying it straight out with battery and solar, they're completely compatible. They'll come from the same vendor.
And Gabe, I'm gonna add a little bit onto that for my personal situation. I do have solar. I've had it since around 2014, and I went with N-phase microinverters. So in that circumstance, how much of a lift is it to be able to integrate battery storage into my existing system with a microinverter setup?
Yeah, so with that system, because the microinverters are not multi-port inverters, you won't be able to directly connect your battery, the DC side, to those inverters, so you won't be able to share them. So that won't be, which would be called a hybrid inverter. So you'll need an inverter for your battery, and then you can utilize your microinverters for your solar system. And then you'll just have to work on how to coordinate your system properly. The battery system will be able to sense whether you're sending energy back out to the grid or whether energy is flowing in, and then it can build in an algorithm to know when to charge and when to discharge, so that you're optimizing your NEM rate to store that energy correctly. But yeah, it's you wouldn't be able to integrate both together with that system.
Thanks for expanding on that unique scenario, Gabe. Appreciate it. And I think nowadays, folks, unlike myself, maybe are thinking more about that battery and integration into it. So I want to say Enphase may actually have replacement microinverters that are a little more compatible with batteries too. So thank you again on that. Okay, Jen's taking a crack at it. We have a couple questions that I think are going to be addressed in Jen's portion of the presentation. So I'm going to hang tight on asking those. And if there's no more technical questions, more about the battery technology itself, integration of the battery, what kind of considerations you may have on the chemistries of the batteries, those are great questions to ask our subject matter expert, Gabe, on that. If there's no more now, we'll transition over to Jen's portion. She's going to talk a little bit about SMUD's programs and how we're supporting our customers with incentives and interconnections that are as easy as possible to do for you. With that, Jen, I'll shut myself down and let you take it away.
Thank you. Can you go to the previous slide, please, Joey?
Gabe, do you mind reversing slides for us?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, both of you. All right, I do see a quick question about incentives, and yes, we do, and I'm going to give you an overview of the incentives we have available. And then just to Terry's question, is this is a personal preference. I think it's just easier, and there's some cost savings if you install solar and battery together, so that's what I would do. Of course, you can talk to your local installers, get at least 3 quotes, and so you can compare prices and make sure that you're getting a good deal. So SMUD has a number of tools to help you and support your decision to determine whether battery storage is right for you. And you can find those tools on smud.org/battery. It'll have all of the information that I'm presenting to you and more, and a very healthy FAQ section as well. We can go to the next slide. So My Energy Optimizer Partner Plus is our battery storage program and incentive. And right now it includes a Tesla Powerwall is one of the required pieces of technology. And it also requires that you are on the solar and storage rate. So if you're currently a NEM customer, you would be transitioning to the new rate to access these incentives. The incentives are one-time incentive up to 10,000. There's several different permutations to that, so we'll go over in more detail. For up to 2 Powerwalls. So if you've got more than 2 Powerwalls, that incentive is going to be the same as if you had 2. And the program also includes quarterly capacity payments ranging from $110 and $330 for up to 3 Powerwalls. This is a program, not just an incentive, so that means we will deliver events to your technology. And let's go to the next slide to learn more. Thank you so much, Gabe. So program eligibility requirements beyond the solar and storage rate is pretty much most eligible, or most project types are eligible, i.e. you're getting a battery, you have a battery. There's some details that we'll get to on the next slide, but if you have a battery or you're in the market for a battery and it's Tesla, you have access to this incentive. The only ineligible factor that we have for this program is people on the MED rate or using their battery to support medical equipment. So that's really the only ineligible factor that we have. And you'll find more information about these on the terms and conditions or participation agreement, which is also on our website. You can read through the whole entire thing, but high level, it's a 3-year enrollment term starting the day that you sign, and you can sign up for the program as soon as your battery project is complete. Your installer should know about the program and they can provide you more information, but if you ever have questions about the program, feel free to reach out to us and our staff. We're happy to help you walk through the steps and learn more about to determine whether the program and incentive is right for you. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about how the program operates and what you can expect once you enroll in the program. There's a maximum of 240 events per year. And really what that looks like is there's 30 events we can deliver to your battery in the summer months, so practically every day. And then we can only deliver 15 events in all other months. So our TOD rate goes from June 1st to September 30th. Those are the months you can expect daily events if necessary. And then all other months of the year, so I think there's 8 more months in the year, you'd only expect to receive 15 events. We can only deliver 1 event per day with a maximum of 4 hours. And weekdays and weekends, they can occur whenever we need it based on grid conditions. I want to just look at our questions. Just to clarify, a customer would only transition to SSR. Yes, yeah. If you, so I think the rule is, and I haven't checked because I am not the program manager, but the program manager just had a baby and is out, so I'm covering. But I believe the way that the rate works is if you add 1 kW of solar or a battery, you would automatically transition to SSR. But if you are just a NEM customer with existing solar and you just want to add a battery, you actually have a choice whether you keep NEM or whether you accept the incentives and participate in the program, and that would mean that you would need to transition to the solar and storage rate. Hope that helps. An event, what is an event? It's what we deliver to your battery. So if we look at our grid conditions on SMUD side and we say, oh my goodness, we need power, we need more power, we need help, we need to call on this program, we would prepare your battery to participate in an event. Usually calls can come up to 24 hours in advance, but they could also be emergency. We'd like to, essentially roll into an event with your battery, pre-charged so that it can last the full duration. But sometimes in an emergency, we get what we get and we won't throw a fit. So Next slide, please. If you're interested in learning about more incentives, Joey sent a very helpful list or a link, and you can also talk to your tax advisor about what other incentives you may qualify for. Worthy of mention is maybe investigating PG&E's SGIP, it's the Self-Generation Incentive Program, and they could, I don't know what their battery incentives are anymore, but they could have potential lowered incentives for customers who may receive gas from PG&E. Worth a look-see, or you can ask your installer as well. So let's get into the details of SMUD's incentive. So if your battery interconnection application was submitted to SMUD on or after April 1st, 2024, so almost a year ago, you qualify for a heightened incentive of up to $10,000, which is really, $5,000 for one battery, $10,000 for two or more, and ongoing incentives based on how many batteries you have. You can see the chart here, ranging from 110 to 330. You can expect incentive payments to, start. Your enrollment incentive will be sent about 2 weeks after your final enrollment and processing, and then ongoing incentives happen at the end of each quarter. Any risk a homeowner not having backup power during event? We will get more about backup power in the next 2 slides, I promise. Just hold with me and I will get there. Next slide, Gabe. If your interconnection application was submitted prior to April 1st, you qualify for the lower incentive. And just a caveat, all of our incentives are based on current resource adequacy market pricing. So we saw a huge impact and increase to our resource adequacy market pricing. And this program is really meant to be an RA product. And because of that, we were able to justify these higher incentives. And they are planning on lowering to match the market, and or until we reach a maximum of 1,500 installations. And so we suspect we'll get there around this summer. And the plan so far is to lower them down to $4,000 instead of $5,000 with a max of $8,000. More to come. Things are fluid. So it's hard to anticipate what will happen with the market, but that's why we've got this increased incentive pricing now. And so that we're really trying to incentivize new batteries to build this virtual power plant. So if you have a battery project that was before April 1st, 2024, then you qualify for the lower incentive of $2,500. It's $2,500 no matter how many batteries you have, but the good news is you still have access to those increased quarterly incentives if you do have more than one battery. And payment timing is exactly the same as the previous option. It takes about 2 weeks once the final enrollment is achieved to get that upfront enrollment incentive, and then ongoing quarterly payments are made at the end of each quarter. Next slide, please. I think this is where we get to the good stuff, the backup power. So this is what you can typically expect in an event or a grid service event is in the daytime, if available, your battery is just going to charge from solar to prepare for an event. During the event window, your battery will dispatch down to VPP backup reserve of 20%. So we always have 20% reserve of your battery to set aside for a customer outage. Thankfully, we're in SMUD and those are rare, although they do happen. So 20%. If you've got your critical loads, as Gabe reviewed earlier, your critical loads panel, that should be backing up, the most important things like your fridge, maybe your lights. If Wi-Fi is working on the outside, I'd want that too. But whatever it is that you've worked with your installer to configure. And then your battery's first going to dispatch to meet your home load, and then any excess will export to the grid. So non-event days, you can expect your battery will operate according to the configurations that you and your installer have set. So it could be time-based control, it could be self-consumption, backup reserve, 100%. I hope it's not 100% backup reserve. I hope you're at least using it, as Gabe mentioned earlier, for energy arbitrage, so you're getting the most out of your investment. So charge your battery during the cheapest time of day and then use it during the most expensive time of day. I really hope that's what the majority of you are doing with your batteries, with a small capacity reserved for backup power. All right, next slide. Yes, just to answer Dawn's question, the incentive payment is paid to the homeowner. All right, how to apply? Really, all roads lead to the Tesla app. You could go to our smud.org /battery website, and you could hit that enroll button, but it's eventually just going to take you to the Tesla app. So really, you can't enroll until your battery is installed and your app is already configured and ready to go. Next slide. And it's worthy of noting that Tesla, really represents the majority of our market today. I like to, it's kind of like our phones, right? I'm an iPhone person, and I love Apple. I've got it all over. Any product I can buy, I buy, and it seems to be that the same with Tesla. Whether it's your car, your solar, your battery storage, it's very brand. It's just popular. So it represents a big portion of our market. So that's why we made the decision to launch with that. And we were working with a company, a third party called Swell. And Swell had plans to expand the market. In fact, it would have already been done by now, but they went out of business at the end of last year. And so we had to scramble to figure out how we were going to maintain the program. And so this expansion is a really important initiative to SMUD to expand the program to include other battery manufacturers. That's exactly what we're working on right now. There's a solicitation underway, and we're hoping to launch by the end of the year, but we're also exploring other creative ways that we can figure out how to expand more efficiently in the interim. So this is on our radar. This is important to us, and we are going to make big moves soon to expand to include other manufacturers as well. Next slide. All right, that's what I have. I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys have. You all have some really great questions coming through, and I feel like I've tackled most of them. But if you do, say you're marinating on it, or you're talking to folks or installers and you have other questions, feel free to reach out to saveenergy@smud.org. Or you can call our load flex line, which is 916-732-7400. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. And I'm going to go through the questions as they came in, but I see first we've got a hand up. Dan, fire away. Welcome to the training today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So my question is regarding the call during events. One of the main reasons for having the battery backup is so that when you're into the peak times of the day, you can draw off your battery. If SMUD is pulling down on those event days to just 20%, don't we run the risk of running out of that power and then having to pay super peak rates for the energy that our battery would have provided during that period?
Yeah, great question. And that's a lot of what our quarterly incentives are based on, is to ensuring a customer stays whole. But in large part, we can expect a lot of those events to occur sometime in the time of day hours, so when prices are really expensive. So, and if we do have to call outside of those hours, or we've created that quarterly payment to ensure customers don't lose money on the program. Great question.
Awesome. Does that address your question, Dan? What I heard was the most likely time events are going to happen are when we're going to be at our highest rates anyway. So hopefully it's operating in alignment with those rates.
So it sounds like the incentives should more than offset what we would have lost in increased rates in those instances.
Correct.
I see nodding, which is a contractual obligation.
Yeah, I think
expand there. Go ahead,
I think
Jen,
it's just really important to, these batteries are not small investments, and I think these incentives really need to ensure that we're taking care and respecting that investment, and so that's what we've done is ensure that you're going to be made more than whole by participating in this program between the upfront and ongoing incentives. So I think that was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Next up, we had a question from Dawn about the incentive payment. I think that was a few slides ago, and I see she's raised her hand. So Dawn, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. So you did answer my question. I just was a little confused by, what's payment, payment, who's receiving what, but it makes sense that an incentive is paid to the homeowner. So I think I understand that correctly. But getting back to Dan's question, so did I understand correctly then that so the $5,000 incentive for the Tesla Powerwall battery is supposed to, and I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm just asking if I'm understanding it, is supposed to cover the inconvenience of maybe not having that we may have to pay for peak rates during the time when there's an event.
Correct,
If
yeah.
I have my house loads and SMUD taking 20% and it exceeds the battery capacity, then I'm using SMUD's peak rates. So the incentive is supposed to cover that inconvenience.
Correct. Yeah. Participating in the
Okay,
program
got it.
isn't going to cost money. And I would say that some of that enrollment incentive is also designed to support that transition from NEM to SSR as well. So we've kind of thought about all of the value streams related to participating in the program and giving up NEM as well. So, yep.
And
Okay, good.
Jen, also, as you mentioned, so there's a quarterly ongoing incentive, correct? So it's more than just the 5,000 initially. If you participate, there's an ongoing incentive to kind of offset any loss of revenue for those peak rates. So
Can
so
you
it's
go
two
back
incentives.
to that slide, please, Gabriel? I did see it, but I didn't know what it meant.
Oh yeah, let me click. Give me a second. So let's go. Okay, so yeah, you can see here that as Jen was pointing out, you have the $5,000 incentives, but then also at the bottom, you can see there's a quarterly reoccurring incentive. So for a single battery, it would be $110 for participating in our program.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Dawn. Good one. And good clarification, because at first glance, there's a couple of ways that money's coming to you, and it's good to understand what's one time and what comes regularly and how those could adjust. I think Jen mentioned, we're constantly reevaluating what the value is. One thing that I had made a comment on additional discharge benefit and that rate arbitrage game that both Gabe and Jen had emphasized is important to get the economics right. But one other thing I didn't make a mention of is that solar and storage rate that Gabe briefly touched on at the beginning of it, where if you are on that SSR, it's solar and storage. It's a little different than the traditional net energy metering rate, and that's a really important distinction to make. And what it does is it adds a lot of value to your battery storage device. And I don't have any calculations or any support of that, but if you're going from roughly, I'm just looking at our rates right now, something along the lines of 20 cents, and you are overproducing at 20 cents a kilowatt hour, then you're only getting I always forget if it's 7.4 or 7.6 cents back for that over generation. So what we're really encouraging our customers to do is use the energy. Use it in your loads, or use it in your heat pump water heater, use it by storing it in your battery, or using it by putting it in an EV. However, whatever's best for your situation. But the encouragement of using that power in real time or storing it for your use later, there's probably a ton more that went into that solar storage rate design that many of the folks on the call have probably participated in those discussions on. But that's kind of the intent behind it. And I don't know if there's more to expand on that, Gabe and Jen, but I think that's an important distinction between the historical NEM rate and the SSR to make.
Yeah, and you're correct. So at 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour that you would be selling to us, it's far better to store that energy, and then offset the 36 cents per kilowatt hour for the peak time. And also, as Joey pointed out, or if you could even use that energy during the middle of the day. Rather than kind of selling it back at 7 cents, because you're offsetting more like 13 or 15 cents during the off peak, and then you're storing and offsetting 36 cents per kilowatt hour. So storing energy or using it is going to be the most economic benefit for you. And I think we have a hand raised.
Yeah, so I was just curious on the for 2 or more Tesla batteries, $10,000 incentive. What estimated percentage of the project cost to put those batteries in would that cover? Just curious how, what percentage, is that half or is that most of it?
Yeah, so the numbers we're looking at, and luckily, usually Tesla or your installer are pretty transparent on the cost of the system. So we're seeing like a single cost for the battery and install between 11 to 13,000, with the battery just being about 10. If you install 2 batteries, luckily it doesn't double the cost, because you've also already upgraded your panel and have your pedestal for the additional battery. So then it's more about 21 to 22,000. So it's roughly about 50% of the cost of the system. And so when we're going back to how much you're actually able to save by charging your system when it's cheap, and then discharging when energy is expensive, with the incentive and what you're able to save, you're able to recoup the cost of this battery system. And if you're able to go past, that 10 years, and also as rates increase, then it becomes there's actually a return on your investment by using our incentives and using energy arbitrage.
Great. Thank you, Gabe. And Dennis, I see your hand up hand is up as well. Fire away if you'd like.
How long do the quarterly reoccurring incentives persist? Is there a expiration where they'll no longer apply? Or how does that work?
Quarterly, great question. The quarterly payments last as long as the term that you're enrolled, which is 3 years. And then you have the ability to sign up again after 3 years without the enrollment incentive. So to continue those quarterly incentives. We haven't made it past the first 3 years, so we don't know. But I think this program will continue to be really important, as it's linked to our 2030 zero carbon plan, and the need to rely on behind the meter devices is only going to increase over time. So what the incentives will be may change, but I don't have more than that. But yeah, so 3 years.
And then perhaps beyond when they get renewed. Yeah.
Most likely beyond. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Dennis, you had another good question about fire protection in the chat.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that, or I can just read it?
I've heard that certain building departments are very concerned about lithium batteries due to some fire problems. We've heard anecdotal stories of Teslas. I have a Tesla myself, but hasn't burned up yet. But there's once they catch on fire, they're very difficult to extinguish. And so I don't know if the code makes any special provisions for when you install them. In Sacramento, things get pretty warm in the summer in the garages, and you had mentioned that doesn't help their efficiency, but are there other considerations that you need to be worried about when you install them, or that you're aware of?
Yeah, so modern fire code, so the California Building Code, does cover energy storage systems. And so there'll be just kind of requirements for spacing, also requirements for testing on the battery system, which Tesla has already completed. Their UL 9540A test. And yeah, so I would say just following the standard California building code, and then making sure that they have the UL listings is just going to be beneficial for and kind of installing this system. And you're fine to install it in the garage. The Tesla systems do have a liquid cooling system built into it. So it really is not going to necessarily affect the efficiency of the system, impact the degradation of the system, but it will require to use a little bit of energy just to cool itself down.
Correct.
Right.
So it's like the car does when it preconditions the battery and it cools the battery system down as you're going to
Yeah.
charge. Got it.
So instead of getting, say, you're storing 10 kilowatt hours and getting 9 kilowatt hours back, maybe now you're only going to get 8.5 or 8 kilowatt hours because some of that's going to be consumed by cooling the system down.
Got it. Okay, great. Thanks very much.
And there was a question, and I hope I didn't miss it here. A little bit about above. Is there a monthly or annual cost for SMUD net metering from solar? And maybe we tweak that slightly and adjust it for the SMUD solar and storage rate. Maybe Dawn, do you want to expand on that? Because we have the legacy NEM, which we call that net energy metering, and now the new one for the last few years has been, I think since 2022, is the solar and storage rate.
Okay, PG&E charges like an annual fee for just being enrolled in a net energy metering program. And so I was just wondering if there's something similar.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm not as savvy
not
on
a rate,
residential rates. Jen, do you have any thoughts? Is there a meter charge for the additional meter associated with solar in that circumstance?
I have no idea. I know that there's an interconnection process and there are fees required for that process, but I don't know about on the bill fees related to either NEM or SSR. Yeah.
Okay.
For NEM, again, on my system, I do have a legacy system from 14. I don't have any additional fees on there, Dawn, but with SSR, I'm not as up to speed on the residential side of the house as I am on the commercial.
Yeah, I don't believe that we have kind of this ongoing charge similar to PG&E, and I
so.
believe San Diego Gas and Electric has it as well, where it's kind of a grid interconnection charge. So it's kind of like to recoup cost of sending energy to their grid and then absorbing energy from the grid. But yeah, I don't believe our SSR rate has that, but we can double check.
I'm reading it right now. It says, as far as metering goes, SMUD will pay for and install at no cost to the customer a single meter capable of registering the flow of electricity in both directions. So there's not an upfront cost for that. And I haven't seen an on-bill monthly fee for it. It's just you have that meter charge. That's standard, but I don't think it's different than what your traditional rate is, Dawn. We'll follow up with you on that if there is one. For now, assume otherwise, but I'll do some recon on my end and circle back with you. Dan, you had another question about incentives for federal and state. So there's a little bit of information in the chat above about the federal investment tax credit and how that could apply to battery storage. We had somebody that was replacing their roof, and just expanding on the notes that I made up there. If it is a solar shingle, if it's a solar tile, it appears that currently, right now, the federal investment tax credit allows that in there as well. So you could get the solar shingle, the battery storage, both covered under the federal investment tax credit. If you are a PG&E customer, last that I knew about the self-generation incentive program, the SGIP, if you were a natural gas customer of PG&E's and a SMUD customer, because of the way the public goods charge is clumped together on their side, it all goes into one bucket. So if you're in any way a PG&E customer, you're paying into that bucket, and therefore you have access to those SGIP funds. And they used to be a pretty substantial incentive that you could also qualify for, but I'd warn that unless things have changed, Gabe and Jen, you have a pulse on this, they're very quickly consumed or reserved at the beginning of every fiscal calendar. They're pretty hard to get. And a lot of times I think the big names in the industry grab them for themselves, and then they issue those through their contractor networks. Anything to add to that, Gabe, Jen?
I put that in the chat. You can work with your contractor because they'll know exactly what specific incentives are available for you. And then also your tax advisor should be well-versed as well. Well-versed, apologies.
I'm going to ask a little bit of a loaded question on this one. There's been a lot of threats at the federal level against a lot of the sustainability tax credit programs. EVs, solar, wind are all being challenged. If you were to look into your crystal ball, do you have any guidance that you want to go out on a limb and share with our crowd today about the future of the federal investment tax credit?
Yeah, I would anticipate changes to that, and i.e. a decrease. But to what extent, I don't know. Will it be funded at all? I don't know. But that's just my gut.
Yeah, and I'll share that it's not related to battery or solar, but I do have a class coming up at the end of April with Plugged in America, who has a presence in DC. And the whole point of that class is to talk about the changes that the federal government is trying to take on EV tax credits and to relieve or apply give you some knowledge about where the federal government is going with that. So by that time, Plugged in America believes that some of the changes could be in place, but they're also a little hesitant to say that the changes are actually going to take place because a lot of the benefits of those programs has been reaching this administration's base. So I'm just doing a little sneak peek on that class. I think the same conversation and the same anxieties people are feeling about EVs could apply to investing in your own solar or battery system if you're counting on those federal tax credits to be there. I'm sorry, I'm going to go through some more questions and shut myself up on this. Dan, did that address what you're getting at with your federal and state incentives? There's the SGIP, there's the federal, and then there's where SMUD's coming in to support it. Those are the big three I would name.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. And a couple times Jen is pointing, the contractors and installers that are out there are really going to have the full quiver of tools to supply your particular situation with real answers, accounting aside. There's a comment, JW, it's important to get other battery manufacturers involved in the program. We cannot sole source. We cannot let Elon Musk corner the market. And I think that's a good data point to include in the way that our programs are designed. And we'll take that back. Thank you for sharing that. And one final question I see in the chat, because we're at time. Any incentives available for the do-it-yourselfer? Ooh, I love it, Dan. I'm the same way.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know who really technically, I mean, we do know who installs your battery through the interconnection. Make sure you follow all the interconnection processes if you're a do-it-yourselfer with experience. As long as we have visibility and you participated in that, then we know that you install the battery. And as long as it works, it connects. Oh, wait. You have to be a certified Tesla installer to access the battery and incentives. Sorry. But if you're a do-it-yourselfer who is also a certified Tesla installer, then no problem at all.
Awesome. Well, if there are any other questions that come up that you think of, please do send them to the SMUD ETC mail at smud.org or save energy at smud.org. We've got a couple of ways to reach us.